Hello, everybody, and welcome into my latest live broadcast. It is Saturday, the 20th of May, 2023. My name is Kerry Holzman, a working computer technician for over 30 years here in the Phoenix area, working for residents and corporations and being self-employed for the last 2 decades or so. And I'm here to share my experience with you. Some people don't like that. Don't know why. However, hopefully you do. And I'm always glad to see my friends in the chat room. All those friends in blue. Our good buddy Buster there watching us from Scotland, Bonnie, Scotland. And let's see, Buster says, good evening, Carrie and Marlena and everyone in the chat. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland, where the temperature in Edinburgh is 56 degrees Fahrenheit or 13 degrees Celsius. And it's raining. Oh, I wish. It's just shy of 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm sure we're going to get there before the end of this broadcast. The air conditioner's running in the background. And beside me, I have this giant computer. This is the Cougar Conquer case that our friend Mitch Morrison refers to as the robot's foot. And in a previous video, I put together the motherboard, which is a Intel 13900KS. That's the biggest and best you can buy on the consumer side. There's nothing faster than that, or hotter, or uses more power, or costs more money. In fact, that chip went up to $850 on Amazon because they sold out. So there were some scalpers, and now they're not even available, which suggests somebody paid that kind of money for it. Should be about a $600 chip, $629, something like that. And they are a limited edition chip, as all the KS processors are. Now, what I did off camera was got the board installed, removed the previous board we had in there. From Studio A, we put in a 10700, then I later upgraded it to a 10850K, and then it just sat. Never had any time to use it. I never had any time to finish it. And then, of course, the 11th gen came out, the 12th gen came out, the 13th gen came out, and it was like, oh, it's time to upgrade this thing now. It's obsolete. You know, it's no longer, it's not obsolete, but it's no longer the flagship that it should be in this case. So with the Corsair Dominator DDR5, the 13900KS, and then I repurposed everything else. So the cooler, we've got the Cougar all-in-one liquid cooler and the Cougar branded power supply are all still being reused. And I purchased a Corsair MP700 Gen5 M.2, that's 2 terabytes. These are almost $400 if you can even find them. This should do 10,000 megabytes per second. I want to remind you, all of this is incredibly financially unsound, and very few people would have the justification to spend this kind of money for what is ultimately diminishing returns. We're reaching a point in computer performance, storage, and RAM where you can buy so much more than you will ever use. They're trying to find other ways to entice you, to convince you to buy it when you don't necessarily need it, or the benefit to it will not be as great as we go from each generation. In general, from one generation to another of processor, be it from AMD or Intel, it's about a 10% difference. So you really need to skip about 4 or 5 generations in order to see a 40 to 50% gain in performance. So if you're running or rocking, let's say, an 8th gen Intel chip right now, you're still fine, because a brand new 13th gen is only going to run about 50% faster, and it's going to cost top dollar for 13th gen right now. So I still run an 8th gen Dell XPS laptop. Now, that Dell XPS laptop was quite expensive back about 5-6 years ago when it was purchased, but still works great today. I have replaced it with an 11th gen, which I don't use because I prefer the 8th because of all the I/O. And Dell took away all the I/O on the laptop. No more HDMI port, no more Type A USB. You've got to use breakout boxes now. You know, it's just stupid. And then recently picked up the Samsung Galaxy Book 3, but I got to tell you, I don't like the placement of the arrow keys, and I don't like the size of the screen. It's not rectangular, it's more square. And while the screen is beautiful, and it is my intention to replace the 8th gen Dell XPS having a really hard time with it because it's so capable and it's so fast. So I was looking at it recently and decided to just run a crystal disk mark on it. And my crystal disk mark came back at 1,000 on the read speed. And I know I put a Sabrent Gen5 4TB drive in it. And I told you guys I'd report back if I had any problems. Well, I have over 49 terabytes. Seems low. I write to that thing like a madman. I probably copy, I don't know, 40 to 60 gigs back and forth off of that drive at a minimum every day. And the drive is 100% healthy, no problems. It's been in there for a few years now, but I didn't understand the slowdown. So I Googled it, and it turns out there is a, well, Sabrent doesn't provide an NVMe driver like Samsung and Intel do, or now Celodyne. I found a link to somebody saying the Phison controller manufacturer has an NVMe driver for Windows 10 that you can download. And I thought, oh, what could it hurt? Because the driver I'm running is Windows 10's built-in NVMe driver that has a date of like 2006 or some ridiculous thing. I don't know, 2016. It's really old. So I thought I'll try it. So I put the Phison driver on there, and my read speeds shot up to 3,200, 3,400, where they were when I first installed it. It probably needs a nice clean install of Windows 10 at this point. And I don't notice any speed difference one way or the other. I was just chasing benchmarks because it seemed like something was wrong, even though the computer does not feel slow. And after I've installed this driver and I see the new date and it gives me warm fuzzies, it doesn't boot any faster. Programs don't load any faster. Files aren't copying any faster. So I don't know what to tell you. I mean, people that want to chase these benchmarks, have fun. Spend your money, spend your time. At the end of it, when it's all said and done, the benefit to you will be negligible in the vast majority of cases out there, people doing this. So I mention all this because with the Corsair MP700, this is sold out. You can't even find these right now. Why? I'll tell you what, this thing's going to run super, super hot. It's likely going to use more power, and it's going to transfer data much, much faster, which will result in milliseconds of difference. So few milliseconds that most people in most circumstances, the human body and the human mind won't be able to process any noticeable difference in performance. But for those of us watching YouTube videos and being on the internet and watching what these content creators are doing, and you're like, ooh, it's super fast, I gotta have it. It's like buying a car that can go 200 miles an hour, but you don't have the guts to drive 200 miles an hour. But you got the car, and it feels good knowing that if you wanted to, you could go 200 miles an hour, but you never will, because it just wouldn't make any sense for you to do that. So you're still driving to the same places at the same speed and getting there at the same time and sitting in the same traffic, but you pay more for your insurance, you pay more for your gas, and who knows, you might even have more reliability issues because you needed to see those numbers. And hey, if that's your thing, there's nothing illegal about it, have fun. But for the rest of us, please, this is like a disease. People are getting infected with chasing benchmarks, and they are spending money they don't have. They're putting money on credit cards, charging high interest so that they can see these big numbers when it doesn't benefit them in practicality and real world usage to much more than milliseconds. So if you want to do that, have at it. But for the rest of you, I want you to be aware of what you're watching when you see these videos. I would never buy this for myself. Maybe later in a couple of years when they're not so hard to get and the prices come down, maybe. But in the meantime, I'm very happy with the Gen 3 drive from Sabrent that's in my 8th generation Intel XPS laptop. And that thing is a beast. Of course, I put 64 gigs of RAM in it, and I put the 4TB drive in it years ago. And because I made that investment, I've got a machine that can keep up and even surpass many new computers that are built on a budget. So bear that in mind, that when you When you're trying to buy something new and you're scraping the bottom of the barrel, don't expect it to be very good or to last very long or to be very reliable. And the same is true when you go to the opposite end of the spectrum. When you get the latest and greatest, it's going to be rife with growing pains. All those people buying those AMD Ryzen chips that are burning up and the motherboards are causing problems paid top dollar so they could be first and they could have the fastest. And now they've got systems that don't work. So let me ask you a question. Does your slow system that works perform better than the fast system that doesn't work? I would argue that your system is faster, cost you less, you were much more smart with your money, and let these other people spend their money, wait in line, and deal with all the teething pains of new technology so that you and I don't have to. We can pay a more reasonable price, have plenty of inventory to choose from, and have all of the compatibility or reliability issues resolved within about 12 months of the product coming out. But for the pioneers, we thank you. Thank you for spending your time and your money pursuing things that don't matter to most people in the real world in a practical sense, so that the rest of us benefit from your investment of time and money. When that equipment becomes, when the appearance of it is that it's not so fast anymore because something newer came out. When that 8th generation laptop came out, that sucker was fast. But when I talk about it today, some of you turn your nose up going, oh, 8th gen, that's slow. Let me tell you something. You were jealous of me having that 8th gen when I bought it because it was top of the line. Nothing was faster. Nothing was better. So here I am telling you now, I'm still rocking it. It still rocks. And I didn't pay any more for it since I've purchased it, basically. The 4 terabyte solid state drive is plenty fast, has had no problems. The 64 gigs of RAM, it's all maxed out. There's no going any bigger than that. And now I can actually just use it for years and years and years and years and years without any problems at all. I did break my delete key. I use the delete key a lot. And I just went on eBay and I bought a new key and I just popped it on there. That's been the only problem I've had to resolve. And I'm having a real hard time giving this system up, I gotta tell you. As nice as that Galaxy Book 3 is, as fast as it is, it still loads about the same amount. Everything. My internet speed isn't any faster because of it. File transfers over the Wi-Fi aren't really any faster. The NAS isn't going to suddenly get faster because, you know, the laptop's faster. You understand what I'm trying to get at? People, they're not looking at the big picture. They're seeing one little fast item, like look at how fast the Ferrari is. But the fact is they're putting it on everyday roads with everyday traffic and potholes and things in the road. They're going to smack against the bottom of the car and damage it because things fall off of cars and there's damage to the roads. And you're going to cringe every time you have to drive over something in the road that potentially causes damage to your car. And your car is going to cost more to maintain and cost more to insure. And if you get the brand new model where you have to be approved for purchase and wait in line to get it, well, you've got a level of money, my friend, that I can only one day dream of never having that problem. I would never want that much money where I could just drop something so haphazardly, drop that kind of money on something so pointless and needless when I could be doing so much good with that money instead, which includes just leaving it in the bank. That's just me. That's just me. Now, I realize this may be a little difficult to see me from time to time because I got to step over here to see the tablet, and it's going to put me behind this machine, which is taller than me, which is not, honestly, that's not a high bar. But yeah, and 8th gen CPUs are also Windows 11 compatible. That's the other thing. There's so much about Windows 11 I can't stand. And the Galaxy Book 3 has Windows 11. Things that used to take, you know, a right click and a left click are now a right click, a left click, and a left click. Like copy and paste is more difficult. Trying to find, like if I want to extract a file with 7-zip, it's no longer in the main context menu. I have to go to a subcontext of the context menu to find 7-zip. Everything has become cumbersome. And I realize in time I'll get used to it, but I don't want to. I don't like it. I'm half tempted to throw Windows 10 on it instead because we still have over 2 years left of Windows 10. I don't know why anybody is going to Windows 11 right now unless it's forced upon you on a new machine like what I'm getting. Microsoft does shove it down your throat. It forces The system integrators, it requires them to have to use it so that you as a consumer no longer have a choice. But you as a consumer can always replace Windows 11 with Windows 10 if you choose to. There were a lot of promises that Windows 11 was going to add a lot more stuff for us, but it isn't yet. It will eventually if Microsoft holds true to their word. And yet, before they even get there, there may be a Windows 12 in 2024-ish. You know, maybe October of 2024, maybe. And if that's the case, it'll be a Windows Vista. I never had Windows Vista. I skipped right over it. It might be like a Windows 8. I never had Windows 8. I skipped over it. I did have Windows 8 on a laptop because that's what it came with. But I very rarely use the laptop. These days, I use the laptop every day. But back at Studio A days, I only used the laptop once every few months when I was traveling. And that's why I bought it. So for me, I went from Windows XP to Windows 7. And I went from Windows 7 to Windows 10. And I would very much like to go from Windows 10 to Windows 12, assuming that Microsoft maintains this pattern, which they may or may not do. There may not be a Windows 12, or it may not be called Windows 12. But I won't be surprised if that's exactly what happens. If come October 2024, there is a Windows 12, which I am not predicting, and I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying if it does happen, that will not surprise me. It's just more of the wheel going around. It's a carousel. It just goes around and around and around, and it's the same old thing over and over and over again. I'd like to see something different. I didn't think there was any way Windows was going to call Windows 11 Windows 11. There's no way they would be that dumb. So now that they've proven to be that dumb, I have every reason to believe they're going to stay that dumb. So I think it's just going to be Windows 12, Windows 13, Windows 14, until somebody shakes the place up a little bit and realizes what they're doing. But in the meantime, my thoughts aside, let me say hello again to all my friends in blue joining us. I hope you're having a great Saturday. And let me just scroll through the chat here and see what I'm missing. Look at all these folks with the 12 next to their name. Bob R. Mortot now has a 12 next to his name. Luke Greenia with the 12. That is awesome. Your support means the world to me. I cannot stress to you just how above and beyond you guys are compared to the normal YouTube, the regular YouTube viewer. You guys represent about less than half of 1% of my subscribers that you are willing to help me to be sponsor free, or to limit the sponsors to like RoboForum, Macronis, and the Windows keys, which I don't shove down your throat. I don't talk about it all the time because I don't want to create fatigue and damage those brands and damage my brand by upsetting people that, you know, constantly being hammered with it. And at the same time, I don't rely on them solely for income. In fact, I like to kind of spread out the sources as many different places as possible. So if something should happen to one, I'm not completely sunk. And you guys, you're incredible. And I want you to know how much I appreciate you. Troll McTrollington contributes $3.50 Canadian. Says, as much as some used cars or car engines. I don't know what that's in reference to, but thank you for the contribution. Dave E has been a supporter now for 12 months as well. So cool. It's hard to believe we've had these memberships for 12 months. And I'm not sure how this year would have panned out with content without you guys. There would have been about half as much content. Just know that. And let's see. Gary Tatum, also a member for 12 months. Gary wrote into me. He recently did an upgrade on his own computer. And I don't know if Gary wants me to share his story with you or not, but if you do, I'll read the email. I'll wait and see what Gary says here. Oh, there's Bill Leatherland joining us. Always good to see our friend Bill, who joins us from the UK. Frank Jimmy says, hello, Uncle Kerry, and chat overcast 90-degree Fahrenheit here in Port St. Lucie, Florida. My friend Ron Hilliard jumping in the chat. Good to see Ron. Dustin Fuller has now been a member for 12 months. That is so cool. Look how many 12-month members there are. So many people had started membership and then canceled them, you know. And so of the few viewers that even started membership, right, which I've already mentioned is fewer than 0.5% of the total number of subscribers, even fewer stayed with it this long. So that is extraordinarily meaningful to me. Means a lot. I guess Gary Tatum was talking about his upgrade story here in the chat room. And Sarge Tech has a 2-month badge. He says, hey, don't forget those of us who've had lesser membership count. We love you too. Oh, no, please. Let me make it very clear if I haven't. The memberships in general make up 0.5%. And that is what sets you guys apart as being rare and valuable to me, all of you. And for those who've stuck with it for the 12 months, that's even more rare. You understand? I appreciate all of you. Again, without you, there would have easily been 50%, half of the content I've produced in since the start of this. Hiccup here. Bear with me for a second. Looks like there was a little hiccup with OBS. All right, so Gary's okay with it. So here's what Gary wrote in. Let's pull this up. He says, there's not a great deal to tell. First off, I'm disabled. I have a severe heart condition, and any kind of physical activity just drains me. Even walking to the mailbox and back is an adventure, LOL. I've been building computers since the 386 days and worked as a professional computer tech for about 8 years until the company I worked for went out of business and I went to work at M&M Mars. Anyway, when he gets back to this whole building story, initially his bank rejected his order for the i9-13900K CPU, so he ended up using PayPal to order it from Newegg. He said the rest of the parts came using my Amazon link through Amazon, and he guessed he should have done his homework more on the case. He bought a Corsair 175R. Oh, it's a thin case. He says it's very small, and of course I needed to liquid cool, and everything was super tight. True. I can feel you. I bought a GIGABYTE UDAX DDR4 motherboard. I would have gotten a DDR5 version, but didn't want to use, but I did want to use the memory I already had. I got everything hooked up and plugged in, pushed the power button, and nothing, no power. The first thing I checked was the front panel connectors, and sure enough, the power switch was a pin off. I got that corrected and turned it on again. The lights came on, the fan started happily spinning around, but no video. I plugged the HDMI cable into the on-port video for the integrated graphics on the Intel chip just to give it another try. This time I was greeted by a message from the BIOS telling me to shut down and plug PCIe power into all graphics cards. I unplugged the computer and pulled the power cables out of the graphics card, which is an EVGA 2070 Super, and I reseated them, but no luck. I got the same message. I thought maybe the cables came unplugged from the power supply itself, it being modular, so I pulled the power supply out, reseated that connection, and tried again with no luck. Then I pulled the graphics card out, reseated it, gave it another shot, and guess what? Still nothing. So I pulled the graphics card, hooked back up the onboard graphics, installed Windows 11, which, by the way, he says, thank you for the coupon from VIP CDK Deals. He started researching it, and after a few posts about the BIOS and VGA and power being an issue, I checked my BIOS. I was on version F7, and the latest version was F23. So I thought, I got it. So I flashed my BIOS with no problem. I got it up and running and updated in Windows. And I knew updating Windows wouldn't matter, but I figured here I was, so why not? I shut the computer down, reinserted the video card, and power back up, and still nothing. So that's where I'm at right now. I've researched some more, and there are a few suggestions from the net, but I've exhausted those already, except one getting a higher wattage power supply. The supply I have now is an EVA 650, and it was powering just fine in the other case. Maybe I had bad sheet metal in the new case. That's a reference to a story I told a while back. But I thought maybe the CPU's drawing more wattage, so there's not enough left for the video card. I'm not sure if that combined with the video card is just too much for 650, but I think that's my last option outside of a bad motherboard. The RGB on the video card does come on. Feel free to share your suggestions. I think you need a 750 watt power supply minimum and maybe go 850 for the 2070. What does the chat room think? It's really hard to say because some of those video cards want that resizable bar turned on, but that shouldn't prevent the card from starting. And when the card starts, the thing is, it's not using a lot of power when you're just, booting into Windows. But a lot of them, as soon as you turn them on, they crank full speed for just a minute during initialization. You hear the fans spin up. And then after that power on self-test, they settle back down. And maybe during that initial setup, it's trying to pull more power than you have. That's my guess. It seems highly unlikely you have any issue with that motherboard or that video card. Furthermore, we don't know how old the power supply is you've got now. It may be just a good idea to replace it with a more power efficient card anyway. Power efficient power supply. NBirdim in the chat says your power supply cables may become damaged. Well, that's a possibility. Adventures with Steven says, hello, everyone. After almost 4 hours, I was able to get my new computer built with little to no trouble, and it runs great. People wonder, why do my videos run 3-4 hours? Well, this is how long it takes. They're so accustomed to being brainwashed and intoxicated with false information and false reality to show a bunch of editing and errors removed and polishing and reshoots and perfect lighting and focus and everybody doing apparently everything right in record time, that it would leave the average viewer to believe reasonably that it takes 20 minutes to build a computer. And it's so unrealistic, and I think it's doing harm to the community that I make these videos long, and sometimes people get really upset. Why is this video so long? I'm sorry. Life is temporary. It'll all be over soon. Like, is this the worst thing in your life? You clicked on a video you didn't like, and then you took time to complain about it. That's really weird. So for those people that want to fight for their ignorance, have at it. I'm not fighting you. Go watch those commercials. That's what you like. Go watch them. Then when you actually sit down to do it yourself, you're going to find that very little of your experience will match what you were expecting from what you saw online from these big publishers. Also in the news, and I'll just mention this quickly, I saw that Linus Sebastian is stepping down as CEO over at Linus Tech Tips. I think this should have been done 10 years ago. He doesn't have a college education in business administration, and he's been over his head a long time. And it's caused the channel a lot of grief, including a potential legal issue with my channel when they were making false copyright claims. And then anytime any Linus gets called out on anything, he shirks any responsibility. He refuses to accept responsibility, and it gets under my skin. So clearly he really should be a personality on camera and do what he enjoys, and let somebody who has an MBA steer this business if he knows what's good for the business. He's got over 100 employees and the company's worth $100 million. How is that even possible with all the mistakes he's made and all of the bad decisions? Somehow, like, I'd love to see a documentary on how he was able to do this, because he has fumbled his way through it like some kind of Inspector Clouseau. And I've been astounded at his success based on how He's doing everything exactly the opposite of what should result in success. And even when he stumbles, he somehow manages to recover from it bigger and stronger than before. And I'll give him credit for that. But I will say, the person he's hired is his old boss at NCIX, and his old boss has no experience in this area. Based on his LinkedIn profile, this is a big, big mistake. So I will predict what's going to happen, and we'll see. Linus is going to say to his employees, don't come to me anymore. I'm no longer your boss. You deal with the CEO now. So this guy steps in from outside, and he's going to start running a company that he has no experience running, and the employees are going to get ticked off. And because the employees are so used to going to Linus, they're going to continue to go to Linus because they know him, and that's what they're used to. They're going to say, hey, this new guy you hired is telling us we have to do this, and we're not going to do it, and we think it's wrong, and you need to talk to him. And Linus, who doesn't like responsibility, is going to say, no, I already told you guys, don't come to me with this stuff. You've got to go through him. Or Linus is going to go to the CEO and say, hey, man, you can't do this. And the CEO is going to say, why did you hire me as a CEO if you're still making the decisions? You're not letting me do my job. So maybe I should just quit. The employees, on the other hand, if Linus doesn't do that, will say, if we have to work for this guy who's being unreasonable and he doesn't know what he's doing, then we're going to quit. So even though Linus is saying he's stepping away, he isn't. He still maintains ownership of the company, and as a result, he's still in charge. What he says is going to go. And if he backs the CEO, he's going to lose employees. And if he backs the employees, he's going to lose the CEO. So I think that's going to happen before the end of this year. I hope I'm wrong. I've seen this play out 1,000 times before. You can read a number of books about a lot of startups and the painfulness they went through. You can read about Steve Jobs and how he was removed from his own company. Bob Metcalf at 3Com was removed from his own company. The folks at Cisco, the husband and wife team that created Cisco, were removed from their own company. So in this case, it's playing out a little different, but it's always the same. And around the wheel goes and goes and goes. Hiring somebody you know who you used to work with isn't hiring the most qualified person for the job. And because as far as I know, he doesn't have any investors, only thing he's going to destroy is himself. I hope things work out. I really do. I don't want to see any harm, but I'm looking at this and I'm just shaking my head and I'm saying, oh, this is not good. This is not good for the employees. This is not good for this new CEO. And I don't think it's going to be good for Linus. So, all right, just remember I said it. You can tell me I was wrong, or you can say, oh, you saw that. See how it plays out. I wish him the best of success. The channel's it's a great channel with some great content, and there's a potential there for that to be, 10 times bigger if it's got somebody proper at the helm that understands this industry, somebody with some experience, somebody who understands business administration, not marketing. It's not none of that. It's just an MBA. It's being a CEO. And, we have celebrity CEOs in America. We have companies that hire CEOs who are known for turning a company's value around, and they'll move them around and boost their stock price by hiring them because they go, hey, this is the guy that turned around Hilton, and now he's turning around Arby's, and now he's turned around Buffalo Wild Wings. And as soon as they announce him as CEO, all the stock goes up and everybody's got all this hope. And they become celebrity CEOs. You may not know that if you're not in this business world, but again, a lot of books on Amazon. Check them out if you're interested in this. It's fascinating. I find it fascinating. And again, no ill will towards Linus Tech Tips. I think he should have done this 10 years ago. Kind of surprised because, it seemed like he was just never going to let it go, but it's taken its toll. It took a long time. He's finally, now how one guy is managing 100 employees, I couldn't do it. I'll tell you right now, I could not do that. But I also wouldn't shirk all my responsibility, which is why I couldn't do it. All right, Boeing 757 pilot contributes $10 in Super Chat. Says, Gary, I love your long, well-explained videos. What are your brand recommendations for an office power supply? Looking for a decent price and longevity. I like EVGA power supplies. That's it, end of story. I prefer to avoid modular power supplies because in offices, they lose the cables. I learned that lesson. You think, oh, it's cleaner cable management, but office PCs, nobody's going to see the cables except the tech. And then when you give them the motherboard box with the spare parts and the spare cables, whoever employee you gave that to, put it somewhere. And they didn't tell anybody. And they don't remember, or the employee's long since been replaced or left the company. Years later, when it's time to do the upgrade, and you need to know where the cables are, nobody knows what you're talking about. So then it's like, okay, I'm going to have to order cables, which means I can't do this job today, which means my drive out here was a waste of time. And then when I get the cables arrived, when they arrive in the mail, then I'll make another appointment, drive back out and do the job that could have already been done in the amount of time I just explained all this. So non-modular power supplies for offices, and I think EVGA has the best bang for the buck and warranty. And they back up their warranty. There's some companies that claim to have a good warranty, but when you reach out to them, you never hear back, or they give you all kinds of runaround. EVGA is a great company to work with. The companies that have the best support, in my experience, are the companies you need support from the least. Daniel C. says hello from Pennsylvania. Hey, welcome in. Welcome in, Daniel. Ron says you can take the modular cables and tie them up inside the case. Not easily, because the problem is they move computers around and you can't have the cables slapping around inside of there. And then on top of that, they can impede airflow or they can get in the way of other things. Ideally, just do not buy a modular power supply. And modular power supplies are less efficient because of the resistance that's made at every connection. You're adding resistance, which is reducing the efficiency of the power supply. On top of the fact that the wrong cable could be used if somebody else, in the company were to I could do this myself. They plug the wrong cable in. I strongly recommend modular power supplies only for enthusiasts and not for businesses for these reasons. And I'm talking from experience. Ron, when you want to get in the car and go with me to the clients, and I'll wait in the car where you go deal with this, we'll see if you change your mind. That's all I'm saying. It's one thing to say it. It's another thing to live it. All right. But for your own personal rig and you want to keep it clean and you got a glass panel and you're doing all the work, no one else touches it, you put the stuff away, you do whatever you want. I'm not suggesting what you should do. Barry Klein's joining us. Welcome in, Barry. Patrick said he's had a few Corsair power supplies die within warranty, but for the cost of shipping it back and waiting, I just bought an EVGA. Never had an issue. Fair. That's fair. I've had a couple issues with Corsairs. I don't use Corsair power supplies anymore. I might on a channel build just because, but I'm not selling them to clients. I just don't trust them. If a client specifically wants a Corsair, I'll advise against it, but I'll ultimately do whatever the customer wants. But yes, when you're buying a cheap Corsair power supply, they can cost as much as or close to a new one. But if you've got an expensive one, if you've got 800, 1,000 watts, it's definitely cost worthy to send it back. It's only 20, 25 bucks to ship them back usually. Seasonic. Yeah, I think Seasonic's overblown, just like Noctua. There's this weird cult-like following behind them. I've had too many failed Seasonics, and I use the Seasonic in the extreme builds because that's what the enthusiasts want. And so I don't try to argue logic with enthusiasts because they're too emotionally attached to the loyalty to these faceless, soulless corporations. But when it comes to running my business, I strongly advise against Seasonic. They're very expensive, and they tend to be very unreliable in the experience I've had with them. I've had too many fail. And there's a reason why I stick with EVGA. And remember, I'm dealing with hundreds of computers. I'm not just some guy at my house building 2 computers in 3 or 4 years and saying, oh, this Seasonic is great. I am coming at it from wanting to stay in business. And so I get really, really upset when my reputation is damaged because a part fails. Customer's upset. I'm upset that I have to go out and fix it at my cost. Yeah, so when you pay top dollar for something, that becomes even less acceptable. Because it happened a couple times in a row with Seasonic, I'm done with them. But again, on super high-end builds, what do I have in here? I went with Cougar on this one. I wouldn't sell one of my customers a Cougar power supply. Is it any good? I don't know. I have no idea. If I had a problem with it, is their support any good? Are they going to be expediting sending it back? I don't know. So for that reason, to keep it all themed out as Cougar, I've taken an enthusiast mindset and not a business mindset. And I've put it all in because it matches aesthetically. And further, it's a way for me to test. And based on that test, I can evaluate whether or not I want to continue down that path or not continue any further, cut my losses if it turns out that there's any problems. Now, the machine hasn't had any power on ours, and the liquid cooler is from Cougar, the case is from Cougar, the power supply is from Cougar, and everything's been great. Just to be clear, don't have any problems whatsoever. I'm happy to say, but I wouldn't turn my customers into guinea pigs. But you buy whatever you want to buy. It's your money and it's your loyalty. And if you feel a loyalty to some faceless, soulless corporation that doesn't know you exist and doesn't care, have at it. You want to buy Noctua fans? Have at it. Ugliest fans in the market. Nobody makes an uglier fan than Noctua. Nobody makes more expensive fans than Noctua. You're into that? Have at it. My customers, they want good value. They want good reliability. And if I rip them off or I sell them something that's broken, it could put me out of business. So I don't care what an enthusiast thinks. Unless the enthusiast is going to come over here and do the work, not interested. However, I'm sure most of my viewers are enthusiasts. So what are you going to do? And I am here to provide you a different perspective than what you're typically accustomed to seeing on YouTube. And you may not like that. But if you ever want to do this for a living, you're going to find out the enthusiast way is no consistent way to sustain a business. Because enthusiasts are very fickle and they can be blindly loyal to things that are going to end up costing you money. It's going to be very, very difficult for you to run your business. But if you want to try it, let me know how it goes. I'd love to hear from you. Anybody in the chat running a business for enthusiasts? I'm just curious. We got anybody out there that builds for enthusiasts? I'm waiting to see if there's any responses. There's a slight delay between when I talk and when you hear me. Alco says, I'm a pro, but only make builds for friends and family. I wonder why there's no builds for enthusiasts, or when there are, these companies don't last very long. Yeah, building for other people, if it's friends and family, that's not a consistent, sustainable business model. Well, depending on, I build for other people. It's my business. Maybe I misread. That's a very vague statement now that I think about what I just said. I build for other people. Lance Irvinger says, I've only built for business customers. I've never built for enthusiasts. Yeah, there's no way to sustain it. Prove me wrong. You can run it for a while, but eventually, yeah. PWC Kotster says, enthusiasts want to build it themselves, or they want to tell you how to build it, that they're too lazy to build it themselves, and they're going to tell you what parts to use and how to build it. Lots of those out there too. But yet, here's all this YouTube content that's all enthusiast based, and yet, who is it for? It's like a weird cult religion type thing where they're all going to this weird church. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm just making an observation. I'm just wondering, is it me or do you see this too? And I hope that it helps you to understand why I do the videos the way I do. That's all. That's all I'm trying to accomplish here. Should I get some work done today? What do you think? We've been on for what, 45 minutes already? Has it been 45 minutes? Uh-huh. You're just sitting there quietly. Well, I'll tell you what. What do you want to do? So you've got the train. You've got the big, not the train. You've got the big helicopter case. And that was the big flagship build I did. And you're testing it by using it every day. Tough job. And what problems have you had with it? No problems? And so you want this computer. And you're going to give me back the helicopter. Oh, you know someone who wants to buy it? What about the mini matching helicopter that goes with it? You're keeping that. But the two go together. It's like father, son. Okay, so what's wrong with it?
The big Apache?
The helicopter. Yeah, the big.
Okay.
So why do you want this one?
The only thing I've experienced on processing some images, if I want to do whatever.
You're having a performance issue when, like when you're doing thumbnails for the channel. By the way, Mara's done the thumbnail for most of the videos you're seeing here lately. She's doing a really good job.
It's nothing to really complain about other than I've noticed.
Okay, so
Processing images.
So what was that? Was that a 12900 or 11900? Do you remember? And we're only going one generation. This is a 13900KS. You're going to be maybe 15% faster because it's the KS, and I think that's the K.
Yeah.
And we're DDR5 instead of DDR4. Right. And then we're Gen 4. Do you have Gen 4 in yours? It's Gen 3. We probably should have used Gen 4 in that. What was I thinking? It's probably too expensive. Okay, so this right now, what did we put in there? 4 terabyte Western Digital Gen 4 in here now. It's under, well, you can have 4 SSDs in here. You want 2. Okay, so this is only a 2 terabyte and it's gonna run hot. And if it were me, I'd put it where that Western Digital is now because that looks like a pretty big heatsink. And then that Western Digital, we could, even though that's our boot drive, we can reinstall. We don't. And I would move that Western Digital to one of the other 3 M.2s that's underneath this bigger, more shallow heatsink that's part of the motherboard design here. So are you okay with having the 2 terabyte and the 4 terabyte?
Ideally.
Well, they don't make this yet in a 4. They only have this available in a 1 and a 2.
So that would be boot drive.
So we're okay with making this the boot drive? Okay. And then you don't want to run onboard graphics. So you bought, a while ago, you bought one of the last remaining, because EVGA doesn't make video cards anymore. The tape is still sealed on this. You've never opened this. You've had this for what, about 6 months or something? This is the RTX 3090 Ti for the Win 3. You could leave this in the box. Did you see Marquez Brownlee bought an original unopened, mint in box, original iPhone for $40,000 just so he could unbox it on his channel and completely diminish its value? So what was that? Is that 20 years ago? How many years was the iPhone out? And back then, you know, there was no app store. You know, the apps on the phone were what you got. And 40 grand at Sotheby's auction house. So this, imagine what this could go for is EVGA's last top of the line, unopened, mint in box. Wonder how much that's worth. Should we unbox it? Oh, the iPhone was 2007, so that's not even 20 years ago. That's 15 years ago, and it's already worth 40 grand. So in 15 years, if this remains unboxed, mint in box, a company that no longer makes video cards, and this is one of the last ones they ever made, and it's the high-end flagship model of the last. You're a gamer? Solitaire? What games do you play? Rift, Terra, WoW. I got a $200 mini PC you can play WoW on. So that you want to put this in there.
Oh, you're saying that, now I'm having doubts.
Anything could happen. You could be dead long before then. Might as well enjoy life. Open it, take it out of the box. Right? Wouldn't you agree in the chat? Or would you just keep it in the box and put it away and forget you had it for 15 years? Even though there's no guarantee it'll be worth that much more, it's possible. I'm going to set it down here because if I put all this on the counter, you won't even see me anymore. And they might enjoy that too much. Bob R said you should keep it in the box. John English in the chat room says this Cougar is awful. I have to tell you, I am not a fan of RGB, but I love this RGB. In fact, we got a weird reflection going on the bottom of it here. The ceiling is reflecting, and this isn't really showing its beauty because of that. There we go. That looks a little bit better. And I've got the glass panels removed on this side so I can dig in there. In fact, I only have one glass panel left on it, and I took them off about a year ago, and hopefully I know where I put all the screws and everything. I know where they are. But as far as RGB goes, I do like this. I'm ashamed, kind of ashamed to admit it. But, you know, art should invoke a response. And if you don't have a response either way, if it's apathy, then I think that's a worse response than saying you love it or you hate it. Having strong feelings one way or the other, I think says a lot for the design. So let's turn it this way and let's fire it up. And let me show you what it looks like before we go tear it into it. We'll show you that it works because you guys haven't seen it since I put the motherboard in. So let's get it hooked up here real quick with the power cable and HDMI cable. Such a tangle of cables here. What a nest I have created. Okay, we're going to use onboard video for now. We've got the Corsair Dominator DDR5 RAM in there, which I would never buy. It's way overpriced. It's stupid. You got these ugly, this is what I didn't understand about this this Cougar modular power supply. It was pretty expensive and high wattage, but they're using ketchup and mustard colored connectors. What? So I was thinking of switching that out with one of these Leon Lee Streimers. I think that's blasphemous in a system of this quality. And, you know, because I wanted to keep everything Cougar, I didn't know, I wasn't paying attention that these weren't all black. At this price point, at this level, that was really disappointing. Let's see, I need a keyboard and a mouse, and I don't know, I could plug internet into it, I guess. I don't know why, but I'll just plug it in. The board does have Wi-Fi built into it. And flip the power switch to on. And I think I've hooked everything up. I'm pretty sure I did. Bring this back around this way so they can see the front of it. Hopefully all my cables are going to reach. And I got a keyboard and a mouse back here somewhere. Okay, and then turn this on, and I'll plug my wireless dongle right up here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the studio lights on this. I think you'll see it better. Now, I can't even see where the power button is. It's way up here. There's a couple of USB ports up there, but I can feel for it. It's a big button. Feel. Found it. And if we turn it this way, see the cooler and the RAM. I guess I have to tilt it down for you to see that. Does that video card have RGB on it?
Yeah.
And then I think if we put the Strymer on there, oh, and then you can't really see because I put the cooling fans on the radiator facing up. I should have turned those around and put the fans here so you can see them. It likely won't make much difference in cooling, but you can't really see the RGB on these And I mentioned that when I first built it with the 10700 or the 10850, and I never got around to switching it. So that still remains on the to-do list. I think it'll still look better. So I just took the whole front of it off the counter. I'm sure that'll be fine. Let's go take a look at our HDMI input and see what this thing looks like at the desktop. Ooh, there it is. Let's go full screen over here. I mean, you guys at home, you're watching it full screen. I am not. Now I am. And let's see what we got going on here. This is the 13th gen, 13900KS. Now, this is sitting at 3.2 gig, but it will ramp to 6. Yeah, you heard me. 6 gigahertz, and that's without any overclocking. We have 4 sticks of Dominator. They're 16 gigs each for a total of 64 gigs of RAM. Is that right? And did I put 64 or 128? I guess
64.
Okay, that's right.
But I want 128.
But you got to pull all 4 out.
Okay.
And go with. What do you mean? Okay.
Okay.
This is expensive. All right. Then there's Windows 11 Pro 22H2. Did I activate it? I would have typically gone over to VIP CDK deals and bought a key for Windows 10 because it's cheaper, and used the Windows 10 key. And that's exactly what I did. Okay, very good. You can't tell from that, but I know what I did. Okay, and then I just didn't, if it was activated, that's the only way I would have activated it. And then we'll go to Windows Update. There's probably been a couple updates since, oh, it's already been downloading those in the background. We'll let those update. And then we can also, let's see, whoopsie, clicked on something. Go back. Let's go here and let's go. Did I turn XMP on? I don't remember. Let's take a look at CPU Z here. It's ridiculous. Monster of a computer. It's actually not very heavy compared to the helicopter. You say somebody wants to buy the helicopter?
Yeah.
For how much?
There.
Yeah. Yeah.
$8 grand.
For $8 grand?
Mhm.
Cash?
Can be.
Are we dropping it off or are they picking it up?
Yes. I haven't worked out the details. We're waiting.
All right. Well, we'll have this conversation later. Okay. You know what I could do with $8 grand for this channel? Yeah, I can make a lot more content. But it means that the long-term review on that's going to be done. But I guess,
Yeah.
it's, I don't
Well,
know.
I've had it for a while. And like I said,
It's been what, 2 years?
Yes. I have no complaints. It's just doing certain tasks like image editing, there's a little bit of
That's hard to believe. Yeah, I would think it would handle that with ease. Doesn't it have a video card in it?
Yes.
It's a 2080,
Mhm.
just a T, is it a TI or just a 20?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think that would handle image
It
editing
does, like I
without
said,
any
I have
concern.
no real
Windows 10 or
complaints.
Windows 11? Windows 10. Okay. I don't know. I don't know. Okay. So anyway, I'm just looking through our specs here. I can't tell if I turned the XMP profile on or not. It says XMP 3.0, but doesn't help that this is so far away I can barely see it. Okay. And then I know I already ran the Crystal Disk Mark info. So let's run it one more time. This is the Western Digital 4 terabyte drive. And I was buying these for $350. The Seagate Fire CUDA is $100 more at $450. And I think the Seagate Fire CUDA is slower. Now I can pick up a 4 terabyte Gen 3 Team Group drive for only $200. So for less than half the price of this Western Digital at the same capacity, and it'll run half the speed at half the price, less than half the price. But if you want the numbers, you're going to get about 7,000 on Gen 4. We should see 10 to 12,000 on Gen 5, et cetera, as we move on to Gen 6, Gen 7, et cetera. George Mariano in the chat says you need sunglasses with this thing.
No, so if you compare this one to the Apache, they're both beautiful cases. And the RGB is absolutely. So sitting here like this, seeing the red and black case and the minimal RGB, absolutely. But if you compare it to the Apache, they're both beautiful. And they both light up beautifully. The cases.
Yeah, you like that.
Stable.
You like unicorn puke.
Well, I do, but like the Alzheimer's case, that was
The Alzheimer's, that was a surprise.
That was
That's bright. That's very bright.
It's bright and it's annoying.
Oh, you think it's annoying?
Yeah.
I never saw you think annoying RGB was annoying.
See,
Dave E says disco duck. Michael 80 says hello from Wilson, New York. George wants to know if all that RGB makes it run better.
Yes, it does.
Jim S says 8K for a used PC.
It's in perfect condition.
Well, not only that, how much were the parts new?
They were
And what's my labor worth?
at least 8,000.
Yeah, this isn't just any used PC. Find another one. Find me another one for sale that's comparable with the hardware that it's got and the cable management and the RGB and the RAM and the storage. Show me one you can buy used at any price. It's very rare. And I signed it. That makes it worth $2,000 less. That's just graffiti. Nick Poverman says RGB was made for people who love to waste money. Hey, you know, if you want to put hubcaps on your lawnmower, who am I to stop you? Martin Hogg says it looks like it should be on Star Trek. Oh, that's why you like it. Evan says, I bet if you looked for one at the same price, you would probably pay double. Oh, sure. If there was a big like system builder like Falcon Northwest, that's easily a $12,000 to $15,000 computer for many of the boutique artisanal builders for sure. And it's very, very heavy, be very expensive to ship, but it just may not be for you. If you're somebody who goes $8,000 for a used PC without taking into consideration the rarity of the parts and the uniqueness and quality and scale of everything, then yeah, step aside because there's other people behind you going, take my money. And I'm not suggesting I got a bunch of people that want to spend 8K for it, but I would take 8K for it. Yeah. Sometimes I don't even want to sell them at any price. Like the Xenos build, that's just not for sale. I've had people make me offers on it and I've turned every offer down. We'll leave it at that. So balk at that. John English says he's seen PCs at $20,000, as have I. Yeah, for sure. Evans 04 says, I think you're giving it at a bargain price. He would up the price. Well, it's not like there's a lot of buyers in that category. And
I was very torn between raising it and not, because it is.
It's a one of a kind.
It is used.
Yeah,
and it's being used.
lightly used.
Lightly
It hasn't
used.
been used to mine
Well, I
Bitcoin.
wouldn't say lightly. It's an everyday.
Yeah, but don't you just leave it on? Is it being powered on and off all the time, or is it staying on?
No, I power. Well, it's on during the week.
And it's an open air case, and it's Arizona, so it's going to be dusty in there.
Yeah.
It's going to have to get blown out.
Trust me.
It will need some
It's well
dusting.
taken care of. It is. Every time I look down, I smile.
All right,
That's
so
why I keep
here's our final numbers on the Western Digital 4 terabyte drive that's in there. And I'm showing this to you for reference only because I'm going to take that Western Digital out. This is what I'm about to do next. I'm going to put in the Corsair MP700 Gen5 NVMe SSD. It's only 2 terabytes. This is a 4 terabyte we're looking at. And the bigger the drive is, the faster it is of that generation. So the Western Digital, what what is it called, an X850N or N850X. It has a variety of capacities. The larger capacities of the same model run faster because of the nature of how solid state technology works. So if there was a 4 terabyte version of this MP700 Gen 5, it would seemingly run faster. And the reason I mention it is that we're not getting a full comparison of apples to apples here, because we're comparing a 4 terabyte Gen 4 to a 2 terabyte Gen 5. And a 2 terabyte Gen 4 won't run this fast, is what I'm trying to tell you. Okay, but this is the upper tier of what Gen 4 is capable of. We can go a little bit more than that before we saturate Gen 4. And this is a first Gen 5 product, first generation Gen 5 product that will likely improve in about a year or two. We should see the speeds go to about 12 to 14,000. Yeah. So let me look at what our updates are doing. I'm just stalling for updates to finish so I can shut this down. Pending restart. And if you want to take a look at what our restart time is, we're also going to restart it once we get the OS installed on the new Gen 5 drive. And despite seeing those bigger transfer numbers, you're going to realize that our boot time isn't noticeably different. I'm going to make that prediction. The box hasn't been opened on this Gen 5. I've never used a Gen 5 drive before. And there's very few channels that have any Gen 5 reviews because they're so hard to come by and they're so new. So I like to be, offering unique content instead of repeating what's already been done. And if I'm going to repeat something that's already been done, I want to try and do it in a way that's different. So that's my goal here as a creator. That's the way I see it. Now, because we're installing updates, our boot time is going to be slowed down because these updates have to finish. So we're going to let this boot up and complete the updates. And I'm going to shut it down and restart it one more time to see how long it truly takes to reboot, because this is not a normal part of booting. This is a once a month thing. And even that, it depends that month on how big the updates are or how invasive they are. Shamim says, I'm enjoying my Persian tea version and another build with Carrie. This is a great community. Enjoy your weekend. Oh, awesome. Thank you, Shamim. Thanks for being a part of the community. John wants me to take a screenshot of the benchmarks. We can just rewind this video. Remember, this video stays up indefinitely, and it's got DVR mode on, meaning that you can rewind the video at any point if you want to go back and look at it. I don't need a screenshot. I know it does about 7,000, so we're good there. I don't need exact numbers. And okay, so we're back up and running. Everything should be happy. Let's go ahead and do our restart. And you guys can pay attention to the clock running underneath this video. See, now when you see that update and restart, that means it's still doing some updates in the background. It hasn't finished yet, so I have to be a little more patient. Still there. I'm going to force that to go away. See, that shutdown's pretty quick. When you see no signal, that means there's no signal coming out of the video card. Here's our power on self-test. There's the toilet bowl flushing that shows Windows 11 is loading. And there's our desktop. So I don't know how many seconds that was, but you guys know, you can see that. And then when we do the Gen 5 installation, we'll do that again and see what kind of numbers we get. So based on that, I can go ahead and permanently shut this down. So we will go back over here to camera 1. And, oh, how am I going to see both screens at the same time? Didn't really think that one through, Carrie. It's really small, but I think I can find it. Button still says update and restart for some reason. Shut down. Oof, that's quick, and then you'll see the lights go off pretty fast. I don't think it's going to be any faster with a Gen 5 drive. Maybe I'm wrong. Place your bets. Okay. We're going to pull the power cable because safety first. Maybe not have this hang over the edge. Maybe that would be a good idea. It's unwieldy. This thing is very impractical. But, you know, money and brains don't necessarily have to be related. Now, let's get a screwdriver here and let's take that Western Digital drive out. And I'm going to need my glasses. Do we want to get the close-up camera on this? All right, we'll give camera girl a minute. She's in the other room. And that way you don't have to look at the bald spot on the back of my head. You could use that as a small projector. Projection screen. Fast and Furious 6. Martin Hogg says, be careful, it might be Borga technology. Yeah, it's too late. I've already been assimilated. Ray Burke says, hello, welcome in, Ray. And Luke Greeny is joining us from Vermont. All right, so you're going to get close-up camera powered up there. And then I can find the close-up camera button. Oh, there it is. Let me know when you're ready.
Ready.
Come on over. Okay, so, and this is a little difficult to work on in the case. That's why I've removed the two glass panels and I've left them off because I can reach in there and hook up power cables and whatnot. But to get to the NVMe drive, I actually did that while the motherboard was out. Now, to take the motherboard out, it's on a tray that slides out, which makes this a very easy case to work on. However, to do that, I have to disconnect the audio cable and front port cables and power cables. And even I have to disconnect the, the cooler is part of the motherboard tray. So that doesn't have to come off. I don't want to redo it all again. So I'm going to work harder so I don't have to work harder. So what I need to do, and I don't know why this is marked up. Hopefully that's just, this thing's been moved around a lot, but I don't think it's been bumped up against anything. I hope that's just some Windex and something will clean that. I need to figure out how, I need to get right behind this. Now, one of the things I like about this case is this piece does come off, but there's a support piece behind it. And we can take all these screws out and we can completely dismantle this case. And I just can't emphasize this enough. I don't want to. So I'm going to try and do this the way you shouldn't do it. And that is, I've got to come, I don't know how well you can see this, but can you get down where I am? Follow the screwdriver. Keep going down, down, further. I want you to take the camera down. You got to look up at it like that. And the screw is right there. It's one thing to unscrew it. It'll be another thing entirely to try to get that screw started straight. But I like this big heat sink, and I think that's going to be ideal. This is the other heat sink that has 3 M.2 drives underneath of it right here. And we'll move that, but not right now. I just want to, for now, just get this out. And the other thing that would make this easier is just simply a smaller screwdriver that I don't have to bend. If I can get a driver that's no longer than that, then I could probably get it in there straight. So again, for unscrewing it, no problem. It's the screwing it back in that's going to be the challenge. And you know what? I'm not wearing my glasses, and it's pitch dark in there, and I can barely see. I was digging the studio lights being off. That's so much easier on my eyes. Now, can I do this without my mouth hanging open at the same time? I've turned into a mouth breather doing this. I don't think this is going to do it. Let me find a smaller screwdriver. I really don't. So this is a 2-second job if I take the 10 minutes to unplug everything. I don't want to do that. Can't stress enough how much I don't want to do that. Those are Torx bits. That's not going to help me. Somewhere in here, I have a kit. This is going to be close. I've got this driver set from Harbor Freight Tools. And you've seen me use this a number of times before. And I keep lately been going back to this a lot. And it's got There's a Phillips right here. I think this is going to be perfect. Well, this just might be exactly what I need here. Yeah, I don't have to turn the driver. I don't have to keep the driver at an angle. Okay, look at that, how the screw dug right into the thermal tape. And now I'll use the same driver. Can you get up in there and see that? There's our drive right there. So I'm going to get up in there. It's so dark, I can barely see in there. Oh, I forgot. This has the quick release. This doesn't use a screw. Can you get down in there? There's a quick release, and I just turn it. It just pops out. Can you see that popped out? Let me see the camera for a second. That is so cool to have that quick disconnect. So that's what was digging into the thermal tape, was that quick disconnect. Worth it. Okay, so here is the drive that was in there, just so you can see I'm not a liar. And you can go back and look at the motherboard prep video I did. I should put a link to it in this video notes later today. And here's our new one. This is brand new, and I mean new in every sense of the word, already sold out and stupid expensive, almost $300 for 2 terabytes, which is just dumb. And let me grab a knife so I can cut the tape. And let's hope there's actually a drive in there and that I haven't been scammed. Actually, this came from Corsair in Taiwan, and it was shipped via DHL to the United States. That's how new this is. They don't even have them in stock in the United States. What was this, 289, 389? I can't remember. It's kind of different. Geez, this isn't looking too good, but oh, wait a minute. There it is. Ooh, isn't that weird? Apparently there's room for a heatsink to go in there. I think they sell it with a heatsink optionally. And we have a safety and compliance form, which can go over there. Now, looking at this is what we bought, this little piece in here. And there's just an extra piece of foam, I guess, to keep it, making it look bigger, I guess. I don't know. That's all there is in this box. So we'll just set it over there. Okay. Why they put this in a static bag, an anti-static bag, I don't understand. It was already fine in what it was in. Now you'll notice I don't wear an anti-static strap, and I just briefly had to grab it by this end to pull it out, which was stupid. They should have put it in the bag this way for that reason. I didn't have much of a choice. So I momentarily grabbed it for as little as I needed to pull it out. And it's really, not much in the way of NAND memory chips here. But it looks just like any other M.2 drive with the single key there. What is that, the B key, the M key? Can't remember what they call that. Anyway, it looks like any other drive, but if you look very closely at the writing, it says Gen5 by 4 NVMe M.2 SSD. And now I will pop this into here. And then I just move that little quick release tab, locks it in. Then I'm going to grab our heatsink, because we're definitely going to need this massive heatsink. That came with the motherboard. That's why I don't want to order an NVMe drive with its own heatsink, because this one matches the aesthetic of the board, and this is all about the aesthetic. We don't want to lose that over something stupid like performance. I think it'll work just fine. I don't know how far in that has to go. It feels like I'm getting some weird resistance there. And once again, I would lay this computer flat to work on it, but it's not easy to do when it's in a case like this, because the case won't sit flat based on its design. But normally this is done when you're building. It's not done after the fact. So I'm doing it what we would call the hard way. And it won't be the first time, and it won't be the last time I do things the hard way. That's it. We're done. That wasn't too bad. It helps when you use the right tools. And these are Pittsburgh tools. So Harbor Freight sells these for $10. And I've been going back to these numerous times. You can even see how I've worn off the paint. And you know what? They're cheap tools. If they break, chuck them in the trash, buy some more. And I like that they're insulated. That's a nice touch. What size was that one I just used? That was a PHO by 6.5, whatever that means. And there's some other code here. Whatever that means. Well, that's just the perfect size bit right there for M.2 screws and mini laptops. And that's what it's called. You can Google that. Amazon sells these for about $20. That's the convenience you pay for not having to go to Harbor Freight. And for those of you watching outside the United States, Harbor Freight is a very discount tool manufacturer. They don't make the best quality tools, but they make the cheapest tools. And they're not half bad, but when they break, just throw them away and buy new ones. Or buy their Harbor Freight warranty where you can exchange it. But, you know, going back to Harbor Freight, waiting in line and going through the process. Ugh. Okay, turn this back around. This away and put this away. And, oh, I got to grab my power cable. I'll go back to camera 1 so you can take a break. There you go. You're clear. Thank you. Good job.
Standing at that angle is rough.
It is rough. It's rough doing the work at that angle. Not easy. Things we do for our audience. Pain that we suffer just to get the right shot. They'll never truly understand it until they try it themselves. And then do it live and has a whole nother level of pain. Okay, let's turn it back. I'm gonna need an operating system. So before I turn it back on, let me grab my Windows 11 install, or I could just clone this one. I think I'm just gonna reinstall Windows 11. To be honest, it's so fast. And there's nothing unique on here that I have to worry about. So it's not like I gotta rebuild. I have to rebuild. Let's see what happens. Plug that in. And turn this on here. Is it here? There it is. And we'll go back over to HDMI input. And we shouldn't have to do anything in the BIOS. It's going to see that the only thing that it can boot to is the flash drive I just plugged in. And it should start with the little toilet bowl again, or Windows 11 toilet bowl flushing. There it is. And that'll be loading off of the flash drive because the drive we just put in has no partition and no format, because they don't know. We could be putting this in a tablet. We could be putting it in a Mac. We could be putting it in something with Linux that they don't know. The manufacturer doesn't say you have to use this with Windows. So that's our job when we buy a new drive, to partition and format it and put our operating system on it. And so it's not a big deal these days. It's not like going through all the floppy disks installs of Windows 95 or Windows 3.1, 3.11 for workgroups. We'll say we don't have a product key. That product key will be reassigned to us automatically as long as we put in Windows 11 Pro, not Windows 11 Home, because our key was for Pro. And since we've had it on there previously, the first time we visit Windows Update, it's going to reassign that product key right back to us, even though it was a Windows 10 product key. There's our new drive. It sees it just fine. It doesn't really indicate anything with Gen 3, 4, 5. That's normal. And our install begins. And while we're waiting for the install, and you might want to time just how long this install takes, because I got a feeling it's going to be one of the fastest you've ever seen. Nick Poverman says, I have about 3 sets of those screwdrivers. I sent you a set about 4 or 5 years ago. You know what, Nick? That's probably the set you sent me because I don't remember buying them at Harbor Freight. So thank you. You see, I'm still using them. Sometimes people send me stuff and you won't see me use it. And you think I don't know that I didn't like it, but I just didn't have any use for it. And then years later, something changes in the things I'm building and I have to find a solution for it. And lo and behold, that thing you sent, now I'm starting to use it. So thank you, Nick. See, patience pays off. Martin Hogg says, Camera Girl's doing an amazing job. Thank you, Camera Girl.
Thank you.
Shamim wants to know, do I recommend iFixit tools? Absolutely, 100%. They're expensive, but they're good. You get what you pay for. They're excellent tools. Mortant says hello in the chat. Richard Cullen saying hello in the chat. Matthew Burden is there. William Dawson is there. Earl Schmidt is there. Bill Sony T is there. Scott Maxfield says hello. Oystein joins us from Norway. Sounds expensive to ship. Yeah, I'd have to take it by hand, I think. There's LRCX joining us. So what about the Mugen cooler screwdriver? Too long. It's too long. I need a short screwdriver in order to get into that case with the motherboard remaining in there like that. It's well, you saw. Most normal people would simply disconnect the wires and slide the case, the motherboard tray out. That would have been the normal, safe way to do it. But I got to be me. What can I tell you? I don't know what to tell you. I don't want to redo the cabling. It's not that big of a deal, but I don't like it. So given a choice of which thing I don't like the least, I didn't like changing the drive out that way, but that for me was way more desirable than pulling all the cabling off and pulling the board back out. But even that's not that hard, if I'm honest. It would have made for a better camera shot, but I'd still be hooking it all back up instead of finishing Windows 11 installation. So I think it was faster that way. And I think we got one more reboot here. Oh, I want to unplug the internet connection so Windows 11 doesn't require me to make an online account. So I just unplugged my Ethernet connection here, back of this Cougar Conquer case. And after we create the local account, I can plug it back in and grab updates. Then we can look at the device manager for what's missing, because there's probably going to be some stuff. Although in all likelihood, we could probably just go ahead and run Crystal Disk Mark, because those driver updates probably have no impact on drive performance. Okay, so I fill all that out. Same, always the same. Keep that location setting on. Everything else I turn off. That way my date and time gets set correctly and maintained throughout the year without me worrying about the real-time clock losing seconds or minutes, or in the case of people that live in changing time zones, having to set it by hand or change it by hand every 6 months. Just leave location on is what I'm saying. How was that Windows 11 install? Anybody time that? Essential Working Too Hard says hello, Carrie and Mara. Hello, Essential Working Too Hard. Peter's VZ says cheers. Peter, Yetter. Avery Ramsdorf says hello. He says the 20 floppies back in the day was fun. Yeah, especially when floppy 17 didn't work. Start over. Paul Newman said it takes him longer to make a cup of coffee than it took us to install Windows 11. It's fair.
That is true.
Might be cheaper. to buy the Windows 11 and to pay for that cup of coffee. Is that Luwak coffee? All right, now I'm going to plug my internet cable back in. I'm going to take my Windows 11 USB out. And then I'm going to hit Windows Update. So let's see, we'll grab the mouse. And let's just grab some updates here. Network card driver was loaded automatically, so that looks happy. And while we wait, if you have any comments, questions, anything you want to grab my attention in the chat room, say it now. Nick Poverman said it takes him longer to pee than it took us to install Windows 11. I can't help you with that one.
Well, this is a toilet bowl. Flushing.
Well, that I could see how you could relate the swirling logo that appears to be a toilet bowl flushing to, yeah. Give Marlena a microphone. You want a microphone?
No.
Doesn't want a microphone. Now, I don't have a very fast internet connection that this is plugged into at the moment, so it's going to take, because of the internet connection, a little while to download. But once they're downloaded, they should install quickly. And let's see, while we're waiting, I'll just turn camera 1 back on again, and then I will just put it in the corner as I normally do, and we'll try and watch both things happening at the same time. Where can I put myself? I think I'm just going to have to make myself smaller. Just do that. All right, so what else we got going on here in the chat? What's happening in your lives, man? What's going on? Arnold Schmidt said, if Nick's having a long time going pee, maybe he needs a go faster sticker. That'll do it.
Maybe he needs RGB.
Thomas MacT says, we have no problem hearing Mara.
Yeah, I'm loud and obnoxious.
I'm just not saying anything. Not agreeing, nor am I disagreeing. Do I look stupid? Don't answer that either. Bikeman says he's just fixing a game error on his Windows 11 Pro desktop. Game kept crashing to desktop. Game support suggested a repair install of Windows 11 Pro. So praying that does fix it when it's done. If it was working before and then it just stopped working, it could be an update. It could be a corrupt file. It seems as good of any beginning suggestion to reinstall Windows 11 to just take that out of the equation. And if it fixes it, so be it. The other thing you could have done is you could have made a full backup image with something like Acronis when the system was working, the game was working. And then when it stopped working, restored your image, it would have been a lot faster. But, you know, to each their own. Yes, there is some noise suppression happening because of the air conditioner, so that could affect your ability to hear her. But as long as you guys can hear her. Josh Kinder says hello in the chat. We're getting there. Downloading the cumulative update here. Another cumulative update. And then this big security. And there goes a video driver right there. When you see the screen black out like that, it's replacing the video driver. And still downloading. This one's installing. That's waiting for a restart, but I don't want to restart it and interrupt these downloads, even though it says we can. I want to wait. You can hear the fan really crank up. Alan Ronald contributes 20 Australian dollars. Hey, Alan, thank you. Gil Garcia says that's a big computer.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not exactly a big person, so it may be a normal sized computer.
No, it's
just a small human.
It's a big case.
Alan says, "G'day from Perth, Western Australia." Welcome in, Alan. G'day, my friend. Still waiting on this last cumulative update, and then I'll restart it. Safari 360 says, "Carrie, you continue to inspire us and educate. Keep up the good work." Thank you, Safari 360. Ron Hillier says, "Hi, Mara, hugs."
Hi, Ron. Doing well.
Blakeman said, "I'm glad my case isn't that big as the one on the screen. It'd be a challenge taking it down the stairs and outside to the outdoor table to dust it out. Still rainy at times around here and cold." Well, rainy and cold usually results in less dust than dry and humid. Are you taking a picture of this with your... Oh my gosh. Well, I'm hearing the fans on the all-in-one cooler crank up anytime that CPU's getting pressed. Matthew Burton says, "I think that case would take up my entire desk." Well, you just need a bigger desk. That's easy. You might even put it in a bigger room in a bigger house. What's the problem? Paul Newman wants to know how heavy this computer is. I would estimate it's about 60 pounds. It's really not that heavy. Although when we add the graphics card to it, that'll probably add another 60 pounds. Nick Poverman says that case weighs more than you and Mara do combined. Only if we're sitting on it. Frank Jimmy wants to know, is it true in Australia the Windows spinning toilet bowl spins in the opposite direction? All right, now we're doing the install. And it's cranking along really quick on this. This install can take a while, so to see it move to 25% that fast tickles me. And I can hear the cooling fans crank up on it too. It's working. And now they're slowing back down. That's normal PC CPU operation where, you know, it cranks up during certain operations to get the job done and generates more heat, consumes more power. The fans have to spin up. It finishes that processing task, moves on to lighter tasks during the install or whatever it's being requested of it, and cools back down, and the fans then can quiet back down. And that under normal usage, you should hear your fan speed up and cool down, slow down, unless you never really use your PC, in which case you may never ever hear your fan crank up because you're just not really pushing it that hard. Or you have a PC that's so low powered that even when the fans are at full speed, they're not very loud at all because you're just not generating that much power and you're not consuming that much power because you have a lower end computer. There's almost no getting around hearing those fans, especially with a video card. The higher end video card, the louder those fans will get when you actually push it. If you're just idling at the desktop, browsing the web, checking email, it should be relatively silent. George wants to know if I have received the Minis Forum NAD 9 mini PC yet. I have not. I think they only just shipped it to me yesterday. For some reason, it was delayed or my order was forgotten. I don't know which happened, but it wouldn't matter because even if they'd sent it to me last week, I wouldn't have had time to do anything with it. So I'm not upset. In fact, when it arrives, I still may not have time to do anything with it until next week or the week after. So I'm sure I will have it at some point this coming week. Maybe Wednesday. Alan Ronald said he just received his Ace Magician N105. He had to ship from the US as it's not available in Australia. Interesting, interesting. Bull Terrier Mac wants to know if I'm still going to flip the fans. Yeah, because you can't see the RGB on these fans. So I'm going to turn the fans to the other side because you'd never know they were there. especially if this was sitting on the floor and you're looking down at it. You will never see those fans. Oh, this finished? So let's restart and let it finish the installs there. As I mentioned, we're probably going to have some devices in the device manager that are unrecognized because this is the latest generation of chipset on this motherboard with the latest CPU, the latest DDR5 RAM, and now, of course, the latest Gen 5 solid-state drive. It doesn't get any newer than the equipment you're seeing in this video, except for the case, cooler, and power supply. Those are from a couple of years old. Everything else is this stuff. Everything I'm using in this build did not exist a year ago. And in some cases didn't exist a couple of months ago. So that's how new this equipment is. That's why it's so hard to get. That's why it's so expensive. And that's why it's so fast. But in a few years, you'll look at it and go, that's not so fast compared to the 16th gen. I don't know why you made such a big deal about it. Like I was talking about my 8th gen laptop. That 8th gen was a screamer. It still is. I don't care what anybody says. That sucker is quick. Stop laughing. It's reliable, it's fast, it's capacious in every way. Storage, RAM, oh my gosh, it is. I love that little, you can pry that from my cold dead hands. If I want to put Windows 11 on it, I can. It's when, it's a Generation 8.
Emotional attachment to an inanimate object.
Don't call yourself that. I think I need another Gatorade. You seem pretty animated to me. Oh, you were talking about the laptop.
Yeah.
I was barely using that laptop the first 2 or 3 years. And then these last 2 years here at Studio B, it's been a lifesaver. And I've grown attached, I admit.
See?
Yeah. But it's about, it's about how it, but it's about how it responds and how it feels, how the keyboard feels, where the keys are located, the touchpad, the ports, the HDMI port, the USB ports.
That's how I feel about all the computers that you build.
Yeah, but that wasn't something that happened for a couple of years. It took a while, and then it grew on me. And in all fairness, if I gave the same shot to the new Galaxy Book 3, or even that Dell XPS 11th gen, which I don't like, you have to have all the dongles for the attachments. I mean, for the I/O. I probably will think that's no big deal once I get used to it. Or maybe I'll get really resentful about it if it gets to be a hassle. Having all these hanging dongles everywhere is just super annoying, especially when I'm moving the mouse and I bump the mouse into them and it knocks the cord free, either out of the socket of the laptop or out of what's plugged into it. So annoying. %98 there. There we go. Now remember, I put no product code in this during install. You've all watched this video live. There's no edits here. Everything is live. So I predict we are activated and our product code has been reassigned to us automatically when we did those Windows updates. So let's see, what do? I go to, let's go to the control panel. And let's go to About. And then let's go up here and type in, I got to use this keyboard, activation. See if Windows is activated. Windows is active. The only way Windows is active is if it's got a product code. Where did the product code come from? It's almost like what I said and what I predicted was like I could see the future. Like the amazing Carmack. We'll grab these last updates here. Looks like another display driver from Intel wants to install for some reason. Well, let's let it do that, I guess. Ray Burke says right now he and his wife have been using a Samsung SSD 862 terabyte SATA drive. It's about 2 years old. They could use an M2 NVMe if they wanted to upgrade, but I wouldn't notice very much difference. You absolutely would not. That's true. And if you did, it would just be like, oh, it's a little more responsive. Be like, briefly, just in that moment of the program loading, it just seemed like it loaded a little quicker. You might get that sensation of that, ooh, in that moment, it felt a little quicker, but not overall and not in general, unless you're running the benchmarks and you look at the numbers, you go, oh my gosh, that's so much faster than my old drive. So, you know, just find a benchmark that lies to you, and then you could achieve the same level of mental happiness based on digital information, if that's what you're allowing to dictate your emotional state of mind. I'm just saying, there's other ways you could accomplish it. If you choose to believe things, why not choose to believe things that are cheaper and just as effective? I mean, it's worth considering, I think. All right, so we're getting a few more security updates here that look pretty small. And then while I'm looking here, let's take a look at the device manager and see how many devices are unfound, unknown. Oh, a bunch. There's a bunch here. So the way I solve these is relatively straightforward. I'm going to just bring up the browser. We can take care of these pretty quickly in most cases. We're going to uncheck that, start without my data, continue without my data. Don't make this more personalized. Okay, and now I'm just going to type in the make and model of the board here. So we have a, well, I know it's GIGABYTE, but what's the model? It's a Z790 something, AORUS something. Where's the box? Z790 AORUS, what? Elite. And the first link should be from GIGABYTE. It looks like I've already clicked on it when I never have before. Is weird. We'll click on support. Now, typically what you're going to see as far as unknown devices is going to be under the chipset section. And we're going to want the serial I/O driver. That's probably going to take care of a bunch of items all by itself. We want the Intel INF, and we want this Intel HID. We could grab the management engine, but that, I don't think we need it. Let's just try my theory, just those three things. And let's extract this. Double click. Which one am I doing now? This is the serial I/O. So just that serial I/O driver and nothing else probably resolves more than half of those unknown items. Let's take a look in the device manager and see what's left after just that one right there. Wow, now we're only down to 3 items. Fascinating, right? So now I'm going to take this INF update. I don't even think I need to extract it since it's one file anyway. I think it just extracts itself. Yep. So there's our second one. You want the device manager closed while it's doing this. This could take a minute. And if we look again in device manager, let's see if there's anything left. One thing is left. So let's see what this is here. Let's close this again. This one says, make sure you want to keep this file. It could be dangerous. Yes, I want to keep it. Show more. Keep it anyway. Then we're going to click on that. And whatever this driver is. Oh, this is the HID driver, the human interface devices. So those drivers, we know for a fact, will have an opportunity to take effect. And if you want, why don't you check and see how long this takes to restart now compared to what it was with the Gen 4 Western Digital drive, and tell me how many seconds or minutes faster this is. Or if you notice any difference in performance at all, or is it slower? I don't know. You tell me. That's the crazy thing. People will be like, I put that fast drive in and now everything seems slower than it did before. And you look at the benchmarks and they're clearly faster. So then what do you say to your customer? Like, well, I'll tell you, man, you just wasted your money, I guess. Take it out, put my other one back, do all the work for free, rip me off. You think that's never happened? Think again. Deal with customers. Tell me how you like it. Okay, Crystal Disk Mark. Here we go. You guys ready for this? We'll make sure we're on drive C. On an NVMe SSD. Here we go. Gen 5. This is my very first time experiencing a Gen 5 drive. What's it going to be, folks? 1,000? 7,000? 10,000? Wah, wah. 7,000 is disappointing. Come on. Really? What the heck? What's going on? That ain't right. Totally worth it. Spent all that money. I wonder, is that slot not supporting Gen 5? I thought it did. That's running Gen 4 all day. That looks like Gen 4 speeds to me. I'm sad. See, benchmarks affected my emotional state. I couldn't tell you how fast this was running without these benchmarks. I'd be stupidly, blissfully happy and ignorant, not knowing and just feeling like, hey, it's faster. I got the new fast drive. That does not appear to be running in Gen 5 speeds. Nick Poverman suggests it is the slot. We have to look at the manual, see, because I would think that would be the slot that would be Gen 5, but what do I know? I'm not the engineer who designed the board, but look at those I/O numbers. Holy crikey. Bob R says, put the Western Digital back. Yeah, it was cheaper and bigger. Well, that's not true. It's about the same price, but twice the size. What the heck? I'm interested in what our write speeds are going to be. I suspect they're going to be somewhere about the same. I'm going to guess 7,000 on the right, on the sequential write, the top right number, which it's working on right now. Repairing it. And here we go, test 1 of 5. Yeah, it's really Gen 4. That is Gen 4 all day long. Huh. Hmm. Okay. So we'll let that finish, and I'm going to pull up. What did we do with the box for this? I should have the box somewhere in here. Z490. Oh, that's got to be the 10850 build. Okay. Z790 AORUS Elite AX. Could also check for a BIOS update on here too, just to see, but should have the owner's manual in here. Oh, they didn't give us an owner's manual. All we got was this piece of paper. What does this say? Nothing. I don't know what this is. But that is not helpful. We got our Wi-Fi antenna in there, and that's some spare parts, and that's it. Okay, so we'll just go back to Google's website here. Google's website, we'll go to Gigabyte's website here. We'll search for it on Google. And let's see, Z790, AORUS Elite AX. Now, first thing I want to know is what is the latest BIOS? That's the first thing I want to check because this is a brand new motherboard with, you know, teething problems to be expected. And this could be a teething issue, or I could have it in a wrong slot. But that's the slot with the biggest heatsink, and that's the slot I want it in for that reason. It says there's been 5 BIOSes for this, with the current being F6C from April 28th. I'm sure we have F6C on here because that's a pretty old BIOS. Okay, so then let's just look at the owner's manual. So back under support, back under manual, we'll look for, let's see, Japanese, simplified, Chinese, Korean, English. Yeah, there's English. That's the one I want. Let's download that. Okay, and then I'll share the screen with you here. And we can look at it together because you guys might see something I don't see. Such is the way of things on live videos, which can be very distracting. Okay. M.2 slots. Should tell us about those here somewhere. Maybe I got to make this a little bit bigger. Okay, there's all our M2 slots. There's 4 of them. And that one's going directly to our CPU, this one on the top, which I would assume is the fast one, but you know, what do I know? Talking about just labeling, nothing about the performance, installation precautions, support for DDR4. What? Support for DDR4. It's DDR5. Thirteenth gen. Let's go under storage. CPU, chipset, memory, board graphics, audio, chipset. Why does this keep skipping back up? It's really annoying. Expansion slot, storage interface, one M.2 connector is Gen4. Oh, yeah, Gen4 is we put it in a Gen4 slot. Chipset, 2 M.2s that are PCIe 4. PCIe 4. Where's, wait, what? Where did I read this as PCIe Gen5? This board doesn't support Gen5? What the heck? There's no Gen5 on this? I swear, I promise you, when I read the description of this board when I ordered it, wait, right here. One PCI Express by 16 supports PCIe 5.0. I'm not crazy. But stupid me assumed, since the M.2 connectors plug directly into the PCIe bus, they would also support PCIe 5.0, and they don't. That's PCIe 4, that's PCIe 4, and that's PCIe 4. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4 M.2 slots. Son of a PCIe slot. PCIe 5. This is a growing pain. This is the kind of stuff you need to pay attention to if you're going to buy the latest and greatest, because they do sell 13th gen boards that accept DDR4 RAM. And they do sell 13th gen boards that take DDR5. And then on top of that, they've got boards with built-in Wi-Fi, and whether or not that's Wi-Fi 6E, could be Wi-Fi 7 being offered. On top of that, you've got all these different USB ports. I don't see any USB 4.0s, which I don't understand why. Everything looks like it's USB 3.2 Gen 1 and Gen 2. No USB 4, which I wasn't even paying attention to, but now that I'm finding a reason to get outraged, and this is all my fault because I order so many parts so often, I just don't take the time an enthusiast would take to research all this little nonsense. I made an assumption that at this level, it would, if it had PCIe Gen 5, that I assumed that the M.2 would be Gen 5 as well. The whole system would be Gen 5. That is just stupid. And no USB 4? Okay, this was one of the cheaper options on the Z790. Let's go to Amazon real quick. Let me see what I'm missing out on here. Let's type in Z790. And if I want a Gen 5 Z790, okay, this is our board here. This is not a cheap board. This is it right here. It's Wi-Fi 6E. It says PCIe 5.0. I'm not crazy. It does openly admit it is not USB 4, which I didn't care about, but now I do because I'm angry, and I'm going to find every reason to justify my anger now. And that's a cheap one, okay? This is the latest and greatest. They don't get much cheaper than that. So for nearly twice the price, I could buy this ASUS ROG Strix, which also has the same Wi-Fi 6E, but shows PCIe 5. I already have PCIe 5, 2.5 gig. I already have that. Oh, but it's Thunderbolt 4. Okay. Hold on. Thunderbolt 4. What about our M2? Does it support Gen 5 M2? Activity. My voltage regulator module. Delivery. I don't care about anything. Not overclocking. See what the M.2 storage is. PCIe 5.0. We already have 5.0 at half. We have all of this at half the price except for the Thunderbolt 4. So why is ASUS charging so much more money for this? I didn't want to pay $500 for the same thing just because it says ASUS on it. Why is there no information on the NVMe? Cooling, networking, memory. What about storage? Really easy if they don't specify it to just completely forget. 5 M.2 slots instead of 4. And right after it says 5 M.2 slots, it says PCIe 5.0, but that doesn't mean the M.2 slots are 5.0. That's two different things. NVMe Gen M support, okay, here it is. Next Gen M.2 supports PCIe 5 M.2 slot with combo heatsink and backplate, and then there are 4 additional, so only one of the 5 slots is Gen 5. Okay, is it worth it to spend all this money and go through all this trouble to get this Corsair MP700? And now I've got to take this board out, buy that board for twice as much money, only so I can end up right back where I was with having the exact same amount of PCIe Gen 4 M.2 slots, the same Wi-Fi, the same PCIe Gen 5 interface for the graphics card, only I'll have Thunderbolt 4, which I don't need. I'll take it, don't get me wrong. Still going to have the same DDR5, the same number of slots. Everything else is the same. And I'll have one additional M.2 slot that'll support this Gen 5 drive. So I'm going to spend $489 plus the $300 and undo all the work and redo it again. So when I run that benchmark, I'll see a 10,000 instead of a 7,000. And when I watch you reboot it, when you watch me reboot it, you'll notice no difference in time whatsoever. Somebody explain to me why I should do this, because I probably am going to.
Oh, I know you're going.
Stupid. This is really stupid. Can I just say how stupid this is? I mean, this is just.
I want to see Gen 5 in action.
This is, I do want to see Gen 5 in action, but I don't want to have to buy a $500 motherboard to accomplish it. And now I've got a perfectly good board here. Why did it just shut off? Did it go to sleep? Oh, it did. All right, so why do I have a perfectly good board here that now, what am I going to do with it? I have to build something with it. And it's going to be high end. It means I got to buy another 13th gen processor and another cooler and more DDR5 RAM with another Gen 4 drive for no customer who's asking me for it. Don't look, it's a great excuse to build at this level to get the parts right. But with 99.5% of my viewers not paying anything to watch this, and many of them think their subscription somehow means money to me, nobody really understands how this is getting paid for. And then what do I do with it, right? Now I got this monster thing that's difficult to move and transport. Neither one of us have a car this is going to fit in. I don't know how you think you're going to get it to your place, but nonetheless, it's not going to be easy to transport. When I had that little minivan, that's the only way we were able to get that helicopter. I don't even know how we're going to get that back. It's going to be very tricky unless we sell it, and then it's their problem to get it out because it's massive. A minivan is great. I don't want to have to rent a car to move this. So that's a lot of work. It's a lot of money just so I can run one test and go, see, this is why you shouldn't do this.
To put the Gen 5 in.
I'm not saying it's anybody's fault. I understand what my responsibility was in this. I understand how I misunderstood, how I made assumptions. I understand how I was driving at price. This price for this board is an excellent price. Price some other 13th gen motherboards that'll take DDR5. Find me one cheaper than this. And it's got to be full-size ATX. Don't send me a micro ATX board because it's got to fill this case. I guess if you have some recommendations for me, guys, leave them in the comments below the video. Send the drive back for a refund and put the... No, I'm not going to send the drive back for a refund because I suspect it's not that the drive doesn't work. There's nothing wrong with the drive. And there may be some other related projects I can do with the drive, such as, such as Generation 5 M.2 becoming a normal thing in a year or two. Now, granted, that drive will be far cheaper in a year or two, but it'll be just as worthy. Although in a year or two, the Gen 5 drives will probably be running at closer to 12 to 14,000 instead of 10,000. So I mean, I get that, but I want this to stand. And this wasn't my intention when I made this video today. I want this to stand as a warning to all of you who want to buy the latest and greatest. I want you to look at these prices. I want you to determine what the actual benefit is going to be outside of the benchmark numbers. And then if you decide to spend the money, then you should be very happy with your decision. Because I'm not happy with my decision. Now that I have this additional information, I would have made other decisions. So I'm hoping by sharing this experience with you, you will avoid this experience and you'll have some other experience that will make you miserable that's completely different. I, am I negative, or do I feel like I just got taken advantage of? I feel like Gigabyte should have made this very clear, because there's such a variety in Generation 13 boards that if you're going to give me PCIe Gen 5, but only on the graphics card socket, not on the M.2, that should be disclosed. I might have to write a review. Now, why am I upset? I want you to think about this. I spent too much money for a product I didn't need that could achieve speeds that will offer me milliseconds of difference in performance. And the whole thing was stupid. But because I didn't get what I wanted, I'm upset. Never mind, it doesn't make any sense. It's not practical. It's not pragmatic. It's not a good value. But on top of that, it didn't achieve what I wanted it to achieve. Never mind that once it achieved it, it offered me no real practical benefit. I'm upset now. I am emotionally upset that I did all that work and spent all that money and waited all that time for these parts to be home to sign for the package. All this other nonsense. Fired up the cameras and got a thumbnail built and did the title. And I said, look, I'm going to be one of the first to test the Gen 5 because I got a Gen 5 motherboard here. Oh, you kind of have a Gen 5 motherboard. We didn't lie. Shane Perkins wants to know, would an M2 adapter for PCIe X16 work for your test? You would likely need... You got to go Gen 5. I don't think there's any external Gen 5 adapters out there. And I don't know that there's an interface that would go that fast. You could go USB 4 and maybe hit Gen 4 speeds, the higher end, but even then, I don't think you could saturate Gen 4. Morton said, you're upset because you didn't check all the specs. I'm upset because I've been doing this a very long time. After a while, all the specs, there's a certain level of repetition, of redundancy of what the manufacturers do. So you come to expect that certain routines are followed, even though they're not written laws, but motherboard generation after motherboard generation, year after year, decade after decade, they all follow these same patterns. Never, never, ever, ever in my career have I ever had a separate generation PCIe slot that was different from the M.2 slot that impacted my ability to test the latest generation of drive. It's never happened in over 30 years of doing this. And in all the build videos I've ever done, this has set a brand new precedent for the variation on the boards that is no longer ubiquitous. It is no longer following a stable industry standard. Now it's become a little bit of the Wild West. Are you going to get Gen 4? I mean, are you going to get Gen 5? Are you going to get Wi-Fi 7? Are you going to get USB 4? It depends who makes the board. Can your board take DDR4 and still take a 13th gen? Maybe, yeah. But if it does, don't expect it to have Gen 5 of everything else. If your RAM's only DDR4, that's an off-balance thing. So you get the DDR5 RAM with a 13th gen, and it says it's PCIe Gen 5. I expect the M.2 to follow suit. This sets a brand new precedent that has never existed in my career. If it has existed, then I somehow walked a path and never came across it. I never crossed that path until today. This is brand new. So when you say I didn't do the research, you're not wrong. But at the same time, I never had to before. And it's the same thing. I'm still putting a CPU on a motherboard with RAM. So why now has this standard changed? And furthermore, why hasn't there been more discussion? I've yet to read an article that warns people of this. I don't see PC World warning people of this. I don't see Tom's Hardware warning people of this. That doesn't mean they haven't. I've not seen it. If you know an article that does warn people of this when shopping for a 13th gen board and being aware that just because it has a Gen 5 PCIe doesn't mean it supports M.2 Gen 5, share the article with me in the comments if you would, because as far as I know, it doesn't exist. So how do I know to look for something I wasn't told to look for? I've never had to look for it in the past. So, and that's my defense. Yes, I didn't do it because I've never had to before, and nobody told me I needed to. So by making this video, I'm hoping to share this educational experience live as I'm living it with you so that you can avoid it. Because if I had somebody I could watch like me do this, then I could have avoided this. But since nobody else is doing it, this is why I make my videos. For better or for worse, it's an educational experience. It doesn't mean the education is what we want, but it's always the education we need. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that right now. All right. So I appreciate you guys for contributing and hanging out with me today. Thank you to Camera Girl for the thumbnail. Thank you for the camera work. Thank you for you guys for hanging out with me on this Saturday. I think we're going to wrap it up because there's nothing more I can do. I was better off with the Western Digital. My original, cheaper, reasonable price. I mean, this is still expensive, but for what you're getting compared to that, this is a much better deal. Twice the capacity, same performance, because we're still getting, I told you we were getting Gen 4 performance by looking at the numbers. You know why? Because it's only supported Gen 4. And, you know, to just get that little couple of milliseconds to spend that money for the drive, okay, I was willing to take that medicine. But to have to replace the board and do all the work all over again, and then I'm stuck with a board that I will have no choice but to order another CPU and more DDR5 RAM and put it into another case with another power supply where I'm already buried in parts. And then what am I going to do with it? I don't want it. I have a tough life, don't I? Sometimes, you know, if I didn't have the money to afford this, I'd be happier. Because if I couldn't have afforded it, I wouldn't have never gone down this, and I would have never experienced this rage. I feel betrayed. I feel lied to. I feel like by GIGABYTE not boldly making these claims, that it was omitted intentionally to deceive and to make a sale, and I've had this board far too long to return it. And the whole reason for returning it and the whole reason of accomplishing this, the whole basis behind even starting it was stupid. It was just stupid. I was going to show you why you shouldn't do this. My intent this whole time was to say, look, we spent the money, we've gone through the trouble. Now look, you see the bigger numbers? Now let's boot up. Let's try some different things. What's loading any faster? This is how it was supposed to go. And then you guys go, oh my gosh, there's very little noticeable difference between one and the other for all that trouble. That was the point of the video. But now I've gone through all of this time, money, and expense. I guess money and expense is the same thing. I'm angry, so I'm trying to exaggerate it. I'm trying to justify my anger. Just to end up exactly where I started from at the beginning of the video as far as performance goes, with half the storage space, but $400 less in the account. So, I mean, it's still got the same lesson. Here's why you shouldn't do this. But it's not the way I planned. This did not go the way I thought it was going to go. I'm going to think about this, and I'm going to find a way to turn this into some lemonade. We're going to turn these lemons into lemonade somehow. I will come up with something, but I'm too upset right now. I'm mad at myself. I'm mad at GIGABYTE. I'm mad at every reviewer and every person who writes an article on tech for not exposing this. This is critical if you're buying systems to know what to look for. I knew when I bought this, I wanted Gen 5. I knew that. I specifically wanted DDR5 and Gen 5. This board had that, and I bought it. It never occurred to me that the M.2 would not have supported Gen 5. That never occurred to me. Nor has it ever needed to occur to me ever in the history of me buying motherboards. At least when Gen 4 came out, and they said, you know, you're going to have to go to Gen 11 of Intel for Gen 4 SSD to work and to look for boards that support it. I read that. I was made aware of it. I knew what to look for. I wasn't made aware of any of this. This is the first time learning any of this. and I study websites. I'm looking at YouTube channels hours a day, every day. Never have I seen this information published. If you guys are aware of any videos that cover this, if you're aware of any articles that talk about it, please send them to me. Please, please. So I know I just did, that may be a channel I need to start following is what I'm trying to say. You guys must not be in any of the sources I normally follow because I trust my sources. I don't know Gordon over at PC World talking about this. Angry. Michael Mariello says, Carrie, thanks for a good lesson. That's Mike from the Bronx. Hey, thank you, Michael. Andy W386 says, Carrie, I know the feeling. I'm looking at the manual for my Gigabyte motherboard, and I'm struggling to understand if the second M.2 supports PCIe Gen 4. Arnold Smith says, it'll all work out in the long run, and we thank you, Carrie, for being the canary in the coal mine. No, it will work out. I promise you it will. That's trust me. I'm a very creative person when it comes to obviously just look at my build videos, look at the video content I make. It's unlike, most of it's unlike anything you're going to find here on YouTube. I'm not saying it's better, but it's definitely different. Something will come of this.
Analogy.
What was a good analogy? Well, I hope not. So if I die, Hyder says, I thought Gen 5 was only NVMe. No, Gen 5 is the PCI Express bus. That's the number of channels it can talk to at the speed at which it can speak to the CPU. CPU's got to be able to handle it. The chipset's got to be able to handle it. And then that's talking about the PCIe bus that the M.2 is attached to. You can take a graphics card and plug a graphics card into an adapter that plugs into an M.2 slot. Did you know that? Because the M.2 slot, at least some of them, are attached to the PCIe lanes. So on those little mini PCs where there's no room for a graphics card, you can buy an adapter in M.2 to, here, let me just pull it up here and show you. Let's go over to Amazon. Now, I don't know why anybody would be foolish enough to lay parts out on a table fully exposed, including an additional power supply to power the graphics card, just to have a GPU in your mini PC. But somebody's buying them because somebody makes it, okay? And it's stupid. It's positively stupid. But despite the fact that it's stupid, it exists. So M.2 to PCIe GPU adapter. It'll be in here somewhere. Slot riser card. Yeah. So this, for example, you can plug your graphics card in this, and then the other end of the cable plugs into your M.2 slot, and you have to provide power to your graphics card, which your mini PC isn't going to be able to do. So you're going to need like a full-size power supply. And then you take your 3070 and plug it in there or whatever, plug your power supply into it, and then you've got to short out the power supply to power it on. All of this is perfectly safe, of course, he said sarcastically. Make sure you're plugging it into an M.2 slot that is in your PCIe lanes and not directly to your CPU. And then you have to figure out some other way to boot the computer. So a lot of times these mini PCs have the ability to add a 2.5-inch drive. So you just throw a 2.5-inch SATA in there, hook up the little SATA cables that come with it, make that your bootable Windows 10 or 11, and then hook up your graphics. You know, Jay's 2 Cents did a video doing this, which is really just bizarre. To me, such a waste of time. But remember I said I follow YouTube channels and I follow tech sites? That's how I know this exists, is I saw Jay's 2 Cents do a video on it, just for full disclosure. I'm not just waking up with this information in my brain, but I don't know why he did it. It's so stupid. And I hope other people don't do this. So yes, your M.2 slot and your PCIe are directly related. Okay. Okay, one last shot here in the comment. Elko provides a link from hwcooling.net. And Nick Poverman provides a link. Now, I'm assuming that these links are going to talk about what to look out for. I do not follow gaming websites. I've never heard of gamingpcbuilder.com. But HW cooling sounds familiar to me, hardware cooling. So that one, and that's from last year, July of 2022. Let's see. Oystein says, check this article for Gen5 M.2 slot motherboards at Takuda. I never heard of Takuda. You might find a cheap one. Okay. So I'm kind of looking for an article of people warning about the whole DDR5, DDR4 support on motherboards in addition to the PCIe Gen5 and how that relates to or does not potentially relate to Gen5 support on the M.2 slot, and to warn people. So hopefully one of those other two links. If you would, I may not see those links otherwise unless you put them in the comment section. So as soon as I end the video, the comment section is available. Please put the comments, put the links in the comment section. If you're blue, you can put links in, and then I will look at them. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Oystein. Thank you, Patrick Roustan, Nick Poverman, Elko Stoffels. Thank you to Richard and Lawn Dog and Bob R. and Arnold Schmidt and Michael Muriello, Matthew Burden, Bob R., Gil Garcia. Thanks to all you guys for hanging out with me today. And Lou Greenia. Thank you to Peter Laycock, of course, good friend Buster. Thank you to John Jack Wilson watching us there in Texas. And to all of you whose too many names there are to mention, it was fun. I'm angry, but I'm not. I mean, it's really not that big of a deal. I got other things going on in my life that's way more important than this. But it just didn't go the way I was expecting it to. And, you know, if you ever had any doubt if my videos were actually staged, what sane person would do this to themselves live on camera worldwide? Not suggesting I'm sane either, but...
You're not.
Class dismissed. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all very, very soon. Thank you for all the super chat contributions that came in today. I'll check the phone just real quick. I know I'm trying to say goodbye and I keep getting pulled back. Bob R. sent an Amazon gift card for $25. Thank you, Bob R. There's a tech support question here. So I will gladly answer your support questions during live videos, but I'm not personally answering people's support questions unless you're a supporter or a customer. But since we're live, I keep trying to download and install a Windows 10 ISO image from the Roofer Standard or the Portable on 3 different brands, supposedly compatible 8 gig USB drives, and 2 different 16 gig. All of them stop after 70%, saying there's not enough disk space. Any suggestions? Sorry to bother you. So I have never, ever shown a video on how to install Windows 10 downloading the source from Rufus. Now, I did show that with Windows 11 in order to bypass. With Rufus, there's a little checkbox that you can have it automatically dismiss the online account requirement, which is pretty cool that Rufus can do that right in the creation. But my how to build a Windows 10 USB drive shows you to get the USB using the Windows Media Creation tool, not Rufus. So that you're getting it from a legitimate source, you're getting it from Microsoft, and you're creating the tool using Microsoft, not Rufus. That is how I recommend it. When you don't watch my videos and you wonder why it's not working, and you ask me a question that I have already answered in a video, the reason I make these videos is so I don't have to keep answering the same questions. You can just watch the video. If watching the video, you follow the steps carefully and you get a different result than I got and you want to reach out, that's fine. But in most cases, and 99.9% of the cases, when people email me from following a video and they get a different result, it's because they didn't follow the video. And they need me to tell them what I've already told them in the video. For some reason, I don't know why. And then they go, oh, okay, thank you. That fixed it. And it drives me crazy. So go ahead and keep sending me those emails and see how long my descent into madness is exasperated through the constant repetition of reliving Groundhog Day over and over and over again. It drives me crazy. So then people are like, well, we're afraid to ask you questions. Well, I hope you are trying to solve the problem on your own first. You're making a fair attempt at trying to feed yourself before you're coming to ask me to feed you, unless you're paying me to feed you, in which case, what would you like to eat? Okay? There's a lot of you out there. It's one of me in a world of viewers. And it's just, I mean, put yourself in my shoes. How would you handle a deluge of emails that arrives 24/7 nonstop with no days off and no holidays? At what point could you just finally run out of steam? I've been doing this a very long time. What other tech YouTuber does what I do? Who answers your emails? Does Jay's 2 Cents answer your emails? Does Linus Tech Tips answer your emails? Why? Because it's impossible. You want to get Tom Cruise on the phone? Good luck. You think he's going to talk to you? You're offering him a role in a movie? You might get through. Too many people are trying to reach out to him. He's like, you know, hey, it's flattering, but at the same time, it's too much. So, you know, just asking you to have a little support, you know, a little empathy. And of course, when people are supporting me, whether it's my members or people contributing in some way, I purposely and intentionally make time to always want to get back with them, because without them, the content wouldn't even be here. But at the same time, I would love to answer everybody else. I really would. And I did when the channel was smaller. And I've been trying to keep up, but the channel keeps getting bigger and it's still just me the whole time. So at some point, I'm going to drown. So I do hope you make an honest attempt to find your own solution. And if not, you come and ask during a live video. In the live video, I'm always asking people for their questions. And for some reason, they don't want to ask their question publicly. They want to ask it privately, but they want me to work for them, to hire me, basically, but don't pay me to give them a private consultation. It's not practical. Doug Betts at Live Windows Training will tell you the same thing. You want to ask your question when I'm live? Ask away. You want a private consultation after the fact? You pay me. So there's a reason Doug Betts and I didn't work this out. It just so happens we both come to the same conclusion. And I think you would too if you found yourself on this side of the camera. And I just don't want to come off as a jerk. I want you to say, what would you do if you were me? And if you know a better solution, enlighten me. Because I'm not saying I like the solution, but I don't know what choice I have. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel. I do appreciate all of you. And I will see you all again very, very soon. Maybe with a new motherboard or maybe with less hair on my head. This isn't helping.
Shave your head.
Yeah, if you shave my head, I won't have a bald spot anymore. Do I have a good head for a shaved head? I don't think I do. I don't think I'll. Gotta keep it all stubbly like Jason Statham, just all the way across. I need to pick up my hair around here after today's video. I think it's all over the floor. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Oh, I just moved the wrong mouse. I woke the computer back up. When it goes to sleep, the RGB goes off. Do you notice that? And the cooling fan stops. I normally turn that off. I turn the power options off. That's the default in Windows 11 install. I'm still trying to find an outro. Here we go. Bye for now.